Are your parents driving you crazy? Are you trying to have a good relationship with them, but it just seems impossible? Do you want to have healthy boundaries with your parents, but it just seems to fill you with guilt and discomfort, and it makes things worse than they already are? Most people think that boundaries with their parents is about them. But the truth is that boundaries is about you. It's about what you're willing to participate in and what you're not. So if you're thinking about developing a good relationship with your parents, it can be done, but they're not going to change. So you have to change. That's the only part of the equation that you control. Early in life, I had a very difficult relationship with my parents. My parents were married very young, wonderful people, but there was a lot of contention. There was a lot of difficulty. I was a part of that, and they were a part of that. I certainly didn't make it easier for them. I was feeling a lot of pain inside, like a lot of emotional pain, a lot of discomfort. And it put me on a spiritual path, a path of getting rid of that discomfort, of feeling better inside. I realized that all I really wanted to do was feel good. And through meditation, through exercise, through something that I call the Zen list, I started to develop practices that really helped me feel better. As I started taking better care of myself, as I started feeling better inside, I started to look at my parents through different eyes. I wasn't looking at them through painful eyes. I wasn't looking at them through resentful eyes. I was looking at them all of a sudden as, wow, these are human beings. And they're just as confused as I am. And they suffer just as much as I do. And they feel this pain. And they don't have any of the tools that I do. As I evolved on my spiritual path and I started to become more skillful, I started to become more loving, more kind to strangers. I would be so thoughtful and so kind. And everywhere that I went, I would always bring the energy up. And I noticed that when I would go to see my parents, I would kind of come with a machine gun full of things to make them wrong about and to be upset about and to pick on all the little things about them that I didn't like. It was partly out of habit. I have an older sister, younger brother, and we would commiserate over the things that happened as we grew up. And there starts to form this little bandwagon that everybody wants to hop on, how bad our parents are. Through my practice, there was something that I developed that was very helpful to me. And I decided consciously that I was going to start looking at what's right in the world. What do I like about this world? What are the miracles? And when that started happening, this whole world that had been right in front of my face the whole time started blossoming. This beautiful, magical, amazing Alice in Wonderland, miracle after miracle after miracle that I just started to tune into, and my world started to become beautiful. It was the same world. I was just looking at it through different eyes. I was looking for different things. I started to do the same thing with the people in my life. I started to look for the things that I liked and loved about them and ignore the things that I didn't. And that's what changed everything with my relationship with my parents. I started to look for the things that I liked and loved about them, what was good about them, all the amazing things. And I found hundreds and hundreds of things to like. And I just started ignoring the handful of things that I didn't like. There's a saying, my, how much you've changed since I've changed. And that's what happened for me with my parents. I changed, and our relationship immediately began to change. They call it in some circles the family mobile. If you think of a mobile that hangs over a child's crib, if you push one side of it, The rest of it has to shift around in order for the whole mobile to stay in balance. One part of the mobile can't move without the rest of it moving. The same thing happens here. When my energy shifted, all the rest of the energy was forced to shift. And when I started showing up with love and kindness in my heart, with genuine caring for my parents, treating them like everyone else, they started showing up in a different way. I was a new Tommy. It took a little time for them to understand that I wasn't going to be attacking them and making them feel bad anymore. But once they started to recognize what was happening, it just allowed for this amazing thing to happen. And so when you are talking about, setting boundaries, you can do that from a loving, kind place. It's not about controlling your parents. It's not really telling them you can't do this and you can do that. It's about understanding what works for you and what doesn't, what energy you're willing to participate in and what you're not. And you can express that to them in a loving way. If you're expressing that to them from anger, they're going to feel that. If you can create yourself beautifully inside, and then you can speak to them from the love that you have from them, boundaries become a way of getting closer, not farther apart. And that's what boundaries did. If one of my parents would start to be judgy about someone or start to talk negatively about someone in the family, I would just say, I think that they're a very nice person, and I don't really like to talk about people like that. And then I maybe would change the subject, or sometimes I would even say, let's talk about something else. There's some things I really like about that person. And then that kind of signals what conversations you're willing to participate in and you're not. You can also tell your parents, look, when you speak this way, it makes me feel this way. When you say this, it makes me feel upset inside. And so perhaps there's a way that we can talk a little differently, because your parents really love you and you really love them. That's the whole irony to this whole situation, is that these are people that love each other the most in the world and yet can't stay connected. Skillful communication is an important part of your boundaries. I'll give you a good example of that. As I became more skillful, I grew up on a small farm in central Jersey, and my father and I were working on the shed in the back. And I was cutting one of the gable cuts, which was sort of a complicated cut, and I cut it backwards. And I went, Dad, I cut it backwards. And he looked at me and he just went, oh, stupid. You're so stupid. And I just kept going. I was quiet for a moment. And I was like, man, it doesn't sit right with me. And in skillful communication, you have to know your truth and then speak your truth clearly. So I realized quickly what my truth was. I said, Dad, I said, when you say that I'm stupid, it means more because you're my father. And it starts living in my head like it's real. Even if you don't mean it, it starts to become real for me. I said, I'm not a stupid person. Please don't call me stupid. And he looked at me. I was like, oh, you're so sensitive all the time. Why are you so sensitive about, right? But he never, ever once called me stupid again. Not once. Why? Because he knew it hurt me, even though it wasn't coming from a bad place. It was having unintended consequences, and that's not what he wanted for me. And I really respect that. But it started because I knew myself, I knew my truth, and I was able to speak that in a moment and shift our relationship. One of the most important things that I developed was learning how to be in a good space. That's what allowed for my good relationship with my parents. The other thing is I have an 8-minute joyfulness meditation that's yours for free. And it's something that you can do before a phone call with your parents, before you're going to visit them, so that you can get yourself in the best space, the best mood possible. And then when you see them, you're going to notice that your interactions are so much better. And as you become more skillful at that practice, and your parents start to expect a different you to show up, their energy is going to be different. So I really hope that you take this on. I wish you lots of luck. We love our parents so much, and we really do want to be close with them, and hopefully this helps. Your happiness is very important to me, and I love you very much. I hope it goes well.
The question is, how do I set boundaries with my parents? Why don't we pull it up instead of playing a guessing game? Let me find
Guessing games can be fun. Maybe we come up with a whole new video.
it. No.
That ADD kid in the classroom, like,